My name is Bonnie Morales. I'm 36, and I used to think being the quiet one was my greatest flaw. Quiet girls get overlooked, overused, and overcharged for family loyalty. Quiet girls get told to be grateful, be patient, and be the bigger person. Quiet girls become the scaffolding that holds everyone else's mess together, until the day the scaffolding decides it's had enough. Sunday dinner was the kind we used to pretend meant something. Rachel, my older sister, liked to stage these picture-perfect gatherings, as if the house itself were a witness on her behalf. Good mother, good wife, good life. White candles. A roast only half warm because she spent too long composing a boomerang of gravy pouring over potatoes. Thomas, her husband, sat at the edge of the table with that far-off look he's worn since the accident, like he's trying to cross a river only he can see. And Haley, 21 and glossy, lounged in her chair with her chin propped on her palm, the way girls do when they know the room was built to admire them. I wore Grandma Carol's necklace. Not expensive, just a small gold chain with a green stone that looked different under every light. In the kitchen, it was moss. In sunlight, it was spring, and at night, it held a little ember of its own. Grandma gave it to me when I was 13. Rachel got the first car. I got the only thing that had ever felt like a choice. "I picked you for this," she'd whispered, and I kept that whisper like a matchbook in my pocket, lit it when I needed to feel warm. Dinner cracked open on small talk. Haley's content calendar, Rachel's community center shift, Thomas's next appointment. I brought a salad and a pie and the map of our family's landmines. I knew where not to step. Never mention money, never say no, never suggest consequences for Haley, never bring up Grandma unless it benefits Rachel's narrative. "Pretty necklace," Haley said after a bite or two, her voice sweet as marzipan. She leaned back, chewing slowly, bored already. "Mom says you can't afford real jewelry." I didn't look up. Quiet girls don't feed small fires. I swallowed, reached for water. Maybe I misheard, I told myself. Maybe the hurt in that sentence wasn't meant for me. She stretched across the table, so fast I felt it before I saw it, and her polished nails hooked the chain at my throat. It was a child's motion, thoughtless and cruel, the kind of thing you do to daisies on your way down a sidewalk. The chain snapped. The stone slipped free and fell into my mashed potatoes with a soft, humiliating sound. Rachel laughed. Not a nervous laugh, not even a surprised one. It was the laugh you practice in the mirror to make sure you look untouched by worry. Thomas glanced down and pretended the salt shaker was fascinating. The room blurred. I could hear the hum of the refrigerator, like a second heartbeat. "Oops," Haley said, and dabbed at her mouth with a napkin like she'd finished a chore. "Guess it wasn't real." There are moments that arrive like a pane of glass, perfectly clear, perfectly sharp, and your next move determines which side of it you'll live on. I looked at my plate, at the green stone cloaked in gravy, and then at the faces I had paid to keep smiling. If I said anything, if I cried, if I pleaded, if I reminded them of 2 years of rent quietly covered, of deposits, of furniture, of that dizzying afternoon I agreed to set up an auto pay for their car loan while Thomas was healing and Haley was learning to be independent. If I said any of it, they would turn my words into a tantrum and label me ungrateful, a poor sport, overdramatic, jealous. Quiet girls get underestimated. It's our greatest advantage. I stood. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't touch my throat. I picked the chain from my plate with the kind of care that anger tries to ruin. The gold glittered wet in my palm. The stone, my stone, nestled against my skin like it knew where it belonged. I folded the pieces into a napkin, slid the stained square into my purse, and pushed my chair back. The legs rasped against the floor like a match striking. "Bonnie," Rachel said, eyebrows arching, a little amused. "It was a joke." "Then you'll remember it," I said, and the sound of my voice surprised me, steady, even, like the way a door sounds when it closes all the way. Outside, the air tasted like rain. I didn't run. I didn't turn back. I reached my car and let my hands rest on the steering wheel until the trembling passed. I thought of Grandma's whisper. I thought of the 1,000 small humiliations we teach ourselves to endure because family. I thought of the way Rachel's laughter had grown fuller each year I said yes. At home, I laid the napkin out on my kitchen table. I rinsed the stone under warm water. It flashed a clean green, like it had waited for this moment to clarify what it was real. I placed it on a plate towel to dry. The chain was ruined, twisted links, a broken clasp, but it wasn't the worst broken thing in this story. My phone buzzed. A group photo from dinner. Rachel had tagged me. The caption, "Sunday reset with my favorite people." Haley's hand rested lightly on Rachel's shoulder, the same hand that had snapped my necklace. Thomas floated at the edge like a watermark. I set the phone down and let quiet pool around me. Not the kind of quiet you choke on. The other kind. The kind you choose. I poured tea and let the kettle's steam stitch the room back into something human. Then I unlocked my desk drawer and took out a folder labeled with a single word: receipts. Pay stubs, transfers, bank confirmations, Haley's lease terms, landlord's contact in neat ink, Alan Reed. Paper doesn't love you back, but it doesn't gaslight you either. Paper tells a single story in simple math. Money out, silence in. You always hope that generosity acts like a stone dropped in water, rings of goodness traveling outward. But when you throw stones into a well with no bottom, you don't make ripples. You just get tired. My phone buzzed again. Haley's newest story, a boomerang of her smirking with a sparkly filter. The caption, "Family over everything." I stared for a long second, then turned the phone face down. The first time Rachel called me crying, 2 years ago, she sounded like a song the choir forgot to rehearse. "Haley needs space," she said. "You know how she's been. Her mental health. Bonnie, please." Thomas's accident had been fresh then, and pity is a kind of gravity I've never learned to fight. I said yes so fast, the word tasted like a reflex. Yes to the deposit. Yes to internet. Yes to a bed that wouldn't hurt her back. Yes to the whispered promise in my own head that this would buy us peace. Peace is not for sale. I boiled more water I didn't need. I checked the time. Not so late that I couldn't call. Not so early they'd be home from their performance dinner. I picked up the phone and found Alan's number. My fingertips paused on the screen. It wasn't guilt that made me hesitate. It was grief. The thing about drawing a boundary is you have to accept what might never cross it again. He answered on the second ring, his voice the kind of practical I had come to trust. Alan Reed. "Hi, Alan. It's Bonnie Morales," I said. "Haley's aunt. We've been in touch a while." "Of course, Ms. Morales. Everything all right?" The kettle clicked off behind me. The whole apartment seemed to hold its breath. "I'm calling to let you know," I said, every word laid carefully on the table between us, "that September's payment was my last. Please consider this official notice. I won't be covering Haley's rent anymore. She'll have 30 days to make other arrangements." There was a silence that felt like relief. "I understand," he said gently. "Thank you for letting me know directly. Please send any notices to Rachel as well," I added, though I knew they'd already taught themselves not to read anything with numbers on it. "It's not personal. It's overdue." "I'll handle it," Alan said. "And Ms. Morales, for what it's worth, you've been the most reliable person on that lease." It should not have made my throat sting, but it did. "Thank you," I managed. We hung up. I set the phone down like it contained something fragile, because it did. A new life. A different geometry of my place in this family. Not the scaffold, not the net, not the quiet yes. The apartment settled around me. Outside, a siren murmured and then faded. I carried the green stone to the window and lifted it to the streetlight. Rain beaded on the glass. The stone held fast in my fingers, its color deepening into something cool and certain. Not expensive, not loud, just real. In the dim reflection, I could see my own face. The quiet girl, the reliable one, the aunt who made problems disappear. I didn't look angry. I looked awake. On the table, the folder of receipts lay open, a history book written in numbers. In the morning, I decided I'd close it for good. But for tonight, I let the quiet do what it does best. Settle, clear, define. Somewhere across town, a laugh was losing its echo. When people like Rachel lose access to your kindness, they treat it like a system outage. Temporary, fixable, and entirely your fault. The morning after that Sunday dinner, I woke up lighter. My first coffee tasted different. Sharper, almost brave. I'd slept through the night for the first time in weeks. For a few quiet hours, I let myself believe that cutting them off was the end of it. But in families like ours, silence doesn't close wounds. It just makes the next shout louder. By noon, the calls began. First one from Rachel. I didn't answer. Then Haley. Declined. Then Rachel again. 5 calls in 10 minutes. The phone trembled on my counter like it was alive, begging for my attention. I turned it over and kept typing up invoices for work, pretending their chaos couldn't find me here, in my small apartment, with the sound of my tea kettle and the rain pressing against the window. Then came the first text. Rachel. Hey, not sure if you forgot or if there was a mix-up, but Haley's landlord says rent didn't come in this month. Can you check? I smiled without humor. Mix-up. She always used polite words like that to cover entitlement. 5 minutes later, another message. Rachel. Haley's freaking out. She got a warning notice. This is really serious. Then, Rachel. Bonnie, this isn't funny. What are you doing? I didn't respond. Let the silence do what my words never could. By the next morning, she'd escalated. 2 missed calls from her, 1 from Thomas. The third time I picked up, not because I owed her anything, but because I wanted her to hear the quiet in my voice. Bonnie, finally! Her tone snapped through the speaker. So you're seriously punishing Haley over a stupid joke? That's low, even for you. There it was, the signature Morales family manipulation. Skip accountability, start with accusation. I didn't interrupt. I let her fill the silence. People like Rachel get uneasy when they can't control the tempo. She's devastated, she went on, humiliated. You know she struggles with anxiety. The landlord's threatening eviction. This makes me look like a terrible mother. You're making me look like a bad person in front of my own daughter. And then, the line that iced my veins. You're blowing this out of proportion because you're jealous. I almost laughed. Jealous. Of what? Her chaos? Her spoiled daughter's cruelty? The endless cycle of taking and blaming? I breathed out slowly and kept my voice even. Rachel, I said, I paid Haley's rent for 2 years. I covered the deposit, the Wi-Fi, the furniture. I gave her independence she didn't earn, and you bragged about it like it was your parenting. When she snapped Grandma's necklace and you laughed, you showed me exactly what my kindness was worth to you. There was silence on the other end, a real one this time, the kind that comes right before someone starts rewriting history. I think you're remembering that wrong, she finally said, her tone brittle. Haley was being dramatic. It wasn't that serious. I almost pitied her. The denial was muscle memory. It was serious enough for me, I said quietly. You'll have to handle this on your own now. Her voice cracked into desperation. She'll apologize, okay? Don't do this. You're punishing her for being young. No, I said. I'm teaching her what adults do when consequences finally arrive. Then I ended the call. No shouting, no final words, just a click. Clean and final, like scissors through ribbon. By the end of that week, Haley was out. Alan, the landlord, called me directly. Ms. Morales, I hate to ask, but I assume you're aware Haley hasn't paid. I'd give her a little more time, but she's not responding. I'm aware, I said. And no, I won't be stepping in. He hesitated, kind voice lined with pity. I figured. Just wanted to confirm. Thank you, I said softly. You've been more patient than most. A few days later, I checked Haley's Instagram. The brunch photos, the city sunsets, the influencer captions, all gone. Replaced by a single photo of her cat, taken in her childhood bedroom. Pale pink walls, lace curtains. Back to where she started. Rachel's text came that night. Rachel, hope you're happy. She has nowhere to go now. No money. You did this. I read it twice. Then I whispered, no, Rachel, you did this. I didn't reply. 2 weeks later, my cousin Jenna called. She worked part-time at the same community center as Rachel, and gossip traveled faster than Rachel's temper. You won't believe the drama, Jenna said, laughing nervously. Haley and Rachel have been going at it every night. Haley's calling her controlling. Rachel's calling her ungrateful. Doors slamming. Full soap opera. I tried not to smile. I'm sure they'll figure it out. Oh, it gets better, Jenna said. Rachel told Haley she should move in with her precious Aunt Bonnie since you apparently enjoy playing the victim. Haley shot back that at least you have a job. Thomas didn't say a word. Just turned up the TV. I leaned back on the couch, tracing my finger along the rim of my mug. The silence I'd created was working. It wasn't revenge. It was education. Rachel wanted power without responsibility. Haley wanted privilege without effort. I'd spent 2 years cushioning both, but without my safety net, they were learning gravity the hard way. Still, I knew Rachel. She wouldn't sit in consequence for long. She'd need a new scapegoat soon, and I had a feeling she'd look for me again. 3 nights later, I got confirmation. Jenna called again. You're not going to believe this one, she whispered. Haley went to her landlord and told him you'd made a mistake, that you meant to pay October's rent but forgot. She even said you've been stressed lately. I closed my eyes, feeling that old, familiar ache, the one that comes from being rewritten in someone else's story. Alan, thankfully, didn't buy it. He showed Haley the cancellation notice I'd signed myself, told her the lease was over, the locks were changing. Jenna's voice softened. She came home with 3 trash bags and a cracked iPhone. Looked like a ghost. Then maybe she's finally met herself, I said quietly. But even as I said it, I knew Rachel wasn't done, not by a long shot. What she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I hadn't just been paying for Haley's apartment. For the last 2 years, I'd also been covering the remainder of their car loan. Quietly. Automatically. The payments came out of my account every month without a single thank you. That night, I sat at my desk, logged into my bank app, and found the line that had been bleeding me dry for years. Automatic transfer. Morales family. Car loan. $4,600. I hovered over the cancel button. No warning, no goodbye, no guilt. Then, click. Another lifeline cut. I leaned back, staring at the confirmation screen. The silence afterward was exquisite, the kind that hums like power. Rachel thought she'd won by humiliating me at dinner. She didn't realize that night she'd broken more than a necklace. She'd broken the last illusion that I owed her anything. Outside, rain whispered against the windows. Somewhere across town, Rachel was probably pouring another glass of cheap wine and bragging about control. But by the end of next month, she'd realize she never had any. The funny thing about entitlement is how fast it turns to panic once the money stops flowing. By mid-October, the ripples from my silence had become waves in Rachel's house. I didn't need Jenna's gossip to know it, though she provided it faithfully. You could almost hear it in the air, the frantic rhythm of someone realizing their safety net has vanished. Rachel had stopped posting her family brunch photos. Haley's TikToks had gone suspiciously quiet. The cheerful facade was slipping, pixel by pixel, and then came the car. 2 weeks after I canceled the autopay, I got a voicemail from Thomas. His voice sounded smaller than I remembered, the kind of tired you can hear in the pauses. Hey, Bonnie, I think there's a mix-up with the car payments. The finance company sent a letter. Rachel said maybe you could check? I deleted it without replaying. Rachel must have put him up to it. She always used Thomas as her shield when her pride wouldn't let her beg directly. I went about my day, went to work, answered emails, paid my own bills, slept through the night, and I didn't feel guilty once. By the end of the month, Jenna called again. You're trending in the Morales family, she said in that half-teasing, half-warning tone. Rachel's losing her mind. The finance company sent a default notice. She screamed at Thomas for an hour, said he should have caught it before it got that far. Then she said it's your fault for not keeping her happy, whatever that means. I couldn't help a small laugh. She's creative. I'll give her that. Bonnie, Jenna said, lowering her voice. I've never seen her this bad. She's tearing through the house like a storm. Haley's recording parts of it for her private story. That was the one detail that almost made me feel pity. Almost. A few days later, the inevitable happened. The repo team showed up just after dawn. Rachel was still in her bathrobe, hair a tangled crown of denial, as a tow truck backed into their driveway. According to Jenna, the neighbors came out with coffee cups in hand, pretending to check their mail while watching the drama unfold. Haley filmed the whole thing from the porch, crying and cursing at the men in safety vests. Rachel ran outside barefoot, waving papers in the air. You can't take that. My husband's disabled. The driver didn't even argue. He just pointed at the clipboard, climbed into the truck, and drove off. The taillights flickered red against her face as the car disappeared down the street. By noon, Haley posted a new video, a tear-streaked selfie and a caption. People smile in your face while ruining your life behind your back. The comments weren't kind. Apparently, some of our relatives remembered the truth. One of my cousins even replied, Is that the same aunt who paid your rent for 2 years? Maybe stop biting the hand that feeds. I didn't need to respond. The universe had done it for me. By the first week of November, Rachel's facade had collapsed completely. She called my mother sobbing about being sabotaged. She called our Aunt Linda claiming I'd betrayed the family. She even tried reaching out to my old coworkers, spinning stories about how I'd cut off a struggling niece for fun. But this time, people didn't buy it. Jenna said, You've got no idea how fast the tide's turning. Everyone knows you helped them. They're starting to say Rachel finally got what was coming. The gossip spread faster than her lies. The golden child glow that had always surrounded Rachel and Haley was dimming under the weight of their own actions. Meanwhile, in the Morales house, things had gone from bad to biblical. The furnace broke. The credit cards maxed out. And Haley, back in her pink childhood bedroom, spent most days sleeping until noon, emerging only to microwave leftovers and complain about the Wi-Fi. Rachel, on the other hand, cycled through her stages of grief like a pro. First denial, then rage, then endless justification. Thomas just endured it. Every time I pictured him sitting at that dinner table, silent while his wife and daughter laughed at me, I remembered that maybe silence had been the only thing he knew how to offer. But silence doesn't stop consequences either. The first sign that Rachel was cracking came through Jenna again. "She's blaming everyone," Jenna said. "You, Thomas, me, anyone who'll listen. Yesterday, she said you're doing this because you've always been jealous of her perfect life." I laughed so hard I nearly spilled my coffee. If that's perfection, she can keep it. Then Jenna added, quieter, "But she's also saying something else. Something about Grandma's trust." That made me pause. "What about it?" "She told people she's thinking of contesting it. Says Grandma meant for both of you to have control, not just you." My stomach went cold. Grandma's trust had always been the quiet center of our family's balance. Small but stable, enough to help with medical bills or emergencies. Rachel never cared about it while she had me footing her bills. But now that her lifelines were gone, she was reaching for the last one she didn't own. I walked to my bookshelf, pulled down the binder labeled Carol Morales Family Trust, and flipped to the first page. My name, alone, beside the word trustee. Grandma's signature below it. She had chosen me. Rachel knew it, but denial makes people bold. I called our lawyer, Mr. Larkin, the same man who'd helped draft the trust years ago. "Lock it down," I said. "Completely. No access, no amendments, no discussions without my written consent." "Of course, Ms. Morales," he said. "Everything will be protected." And just like that, Rachel's last illusion of control slipped away. That night, I poured myself a glass of wine and opened my journal. I hadn't written in months, but the words came easy. They thought my kindness was endless because I never asked for thanks. But kindness without respect isn't generosity, it's servitude. Tonight, I ended the contract they never signed. The phone buzzed once. Rachel's name. I didn't answer. Instead, I stood by the window, watching headlights slide across the rain-slick street, and thought about Grandma's necklace, the broken chain still lying on my dresser, the stone resting beside it. It wasn't just jewelry anymore. It was prophecy, a reminder that what's real doesn't need approval to shine. And somewhere across town, Rachel was about to learn what losing power truly feels like. Families like mine never implode quietly. They perform it, with crying phone calls, selective storytelling, and the endless need for an audience. By mid-November, the Morales drama had become small-town folklore. Jenna said people at the community center had stopped even pretending to be shocked. Every day, Rachel found a new villain to blame. Me, Thomas, the predatory bank, even Grandma's ghost. But the day she mentioned the trust, everything changed. That morning, I sat in my apartment sorting bills when my phone lit up with messages from 3 different relatives. Aunt Linda, "Rach said you're trying to cut her out of Carol's trust. Is that true?" Cousin Greg, "Bonnie, tell me you didn't block your sister from Grandma's estate." Mom, "Call your sister. She's saying ugly things." Rachel had finally gone public. I called Mr. Larkin, the lawyer. His calm voice grounded me. "Don't worry," he said. "The trust is sealed. Only you have access. But Ms. Morales, your sister's persistent." Persistent. That was polite for desperate. "Thank you," I said. "Please note that no one is to access or question it without me present." When we hung up, I drafted one short text to Rachel. "Don't even think about it. You'll get nothing. Not now, not ever." Her reply came 3 minutes later. "You're disgusting. Grandma would be ashamed of you." I blocked her number. 2 nights later, someone knocked on my door. I almost didn't answer. But the knock wasn't angry. It was tired. When I opened it, Thomas stood there. His limp was worse than I remembered, his jacket hanging loose on his frame. In his hands was something small and wooden, Grandma Carol's old sewing box. "I kept it safe," he said quietly, even when Rachel told me to throw it out. He placed it gently on my table. Inside were spools of faded thread, a silver thimble, and a folded letter yellowed by time. He didn't look at me as he spoke. "I didn't agree with how they treated you. I just didn't know what to do." For once, I believed him. "No one did," I said softly. He nodded, eyes glossy. "But I wanted to say thank you for helping when I couldn't, for not letting her destroy everything." Then he left, the hallway light catching the edges of his worn shoes as the door shut behind him. I sat down and opened the letter. "Bonnie, If Rachel ever makes you feel guilty for saying no, read this. You've done enough. Let those who take without thanks finally learn to stand. Grandma Carol. Her handwriting shook in places, but the message didn't. For the first time since that dinner, I let myself cry. Not from anger, from release. But Rachel wasn't finished, not by a long shot. A week later, Jenna warned me, "Heads up, Aunt Linda's birthday lunch is today. Rachel's going, and she's talking big." I sighed. Of course she is. Jenna hesitated. She's planning something. Let her. The restaurant was all soft lighting and clinking silverware. I arrived late on purpose. Rachel was already there, her smile stretched thin, rehearsed. Haley sat beside her, scrolling her phone like a shield. Thomas stared at the tablecloth. "Bonnie," Aunt Linda said, pulling me into a hug too warm to be neutral. "We were just talking about you." I smiled politely. "Of course you were." Rachel chuckled, the kind of laugh that sounds like a blade being unsheathed. "We were just saying it's sad how money changes people. Family shouldn't turn their backs, you know." Her words floated in the air like perfume, sweet, toxic, meant to impress the room. I didn't bite. I simply picked up my water and waited. But then the universe decided to do the talking for me. Haley's phone rang. Loud, echoing across the table. She fumbled, trying to silence it, but the voice came through the speaker, clear as daylight. "Hi, this is Michael from the bank regarding your recent credit application under the name Bonnie Morales." Haley's face drained of color. She stabbed at the screen, hanging up, but it was too late. The entire table had heard. Rachel froze, fork halfway to her mouth. What was that?" Haley stammered. "It was just a mistake. Aunt Linda's eyes narrowed. "You tried to open credit in your aunt's name." The silence that followed was merciless. Rachel whispered, "Tell me you didn't." Haley looked at me, then at her mother. Her voice broke. "I just thought she'd help if—" "Help?" Rachel snapped. "You stole!" The irony was so thick I almost laughed. For the first time, Rachel couldn't twist the narrative. The villain she'd painted was standing calmly at the end of the table while her perfect daughter drowned in her own mess. Aunt Linda stood, voice firm. "Bonnie, I think you should tell everyone the truth." I did, quietly, fact by fact. The rent, the car, the necklace, the laughter, the trust. When I finished, the table was silent. Rachel's mascara smudged at the corners, Haley's eyes red. Aunt Linda exhaled. "She really broke Carol's necklace?" I nodded once. The whole room seemed to sag with understanding. I didn't need to gloat. The truth had its own gravity. That night, my phone filled with messages. Cousin Greg, "I had no idea you did all that, Bonnie. I'm sorry." Aunt Linda, "You did more than enough. Let her face it." Even Jenna texted, "You won." But it didn't feel like winning. It felt like waking up after a long fever. Rachel's empire of illusion had finally collapsed, and she didn't even realize the final blow hadn't come from me. It had come from her own daughter. And still, I knew what came next. When liars lose their audience, they don't apologize. They escalate. 2 days after Aunt Linda's lunch, I woke to pounding on my front door, the kind that comes with panic, not courtesy. Through the peephole, I saw Rachel. Behind her, Thomas, pale and weary. And in the car, parked by the curb, Haley, eyes red, staring at her lap like the world had already ended. I didn't open right away. I wanted her to feel the pause, to understand that she no longer had the right to burst into my peace. When I finally turned the lock, Rachel didn't even say hello. She pushed past me, words spilling like knives. "You humiliated me in front of everyone. Do you have any idea what you've done? They're treating us like criminals because of you." Thomas lingered at the doorway, silent, holding something in his hands, a folded letter. I crossed my arms. "Because of me? Or because your daughter tried to steal my identity?" Rachel's eyes flashed. "She made a mistake. She's young. You could have handled it privately instead of turning the whole family against us." I let her rage fill the space between us. Her voice bounced off my walls, but none of it reached me. I'd already spent too many years letting her noise decide my boundaries. "Rachel," I said evenly, "you did that all by yourself." She took a step closer. "You think you're so perfect, don't you? Always the martyr, the good one, the one Grandma trusted. You used her death to control everyone." "Control?" I repeated quietly. "You mean accountability?" Her breath hitched, but she pushed through it. "You always wanted to be the favorite, even when we were kids. And now you've turned the whole family against me just to feel superior." I didn't argue. That's the thing about people like Rachel. They need you to feed their delusion to keep it alive. Silence, to them, feels like starvation. Thomas finally spoke, voice rough but calm. Rachel, stop. She turned, incredulous. Stop? She ruined us. He held out the folded letter. No, we did this. For the first time, Rachel faltered. What's that? I asked gently. Thomas stepped forward and placed the letter in my hands. The paper was worn at the creases, edges frayed. Your grandmother's, he said. I found it in the sewing box. It's addressed to you. Rachel frowned. What? But I'd already recognized Grandma's handwriting. I unfolded it slowly. The ink had faded, but her voice was still strong on the page. Bonnie, if Rachel ever makes you feel guilty for saying no, read this. You've done enough. Let those who take without thanks finally learn to stand. Grandma Carol. I looked up. Rachel's face was pale, her mouth opening, but no sound coming out. I handed the letter back to Thomas, then met Rachel's eyes. She knew exactly who you were. She just hoped one day you'd see it too. Rachel shook her head, eyes shining with fury and denial. No, she didn't mean... I took a step closer. She meant every word. She started crying, not out of regret, but humiliation. You don't understand what it's like, Bonnie. Everyone expects me to be perfect. I did what I had to do for my family. I didn't flinch. Breaking Grandma's necklace, letting your daughter mock me, lying about money, trying to steal from me. That's what you call doing what you had to do? Her tears turned sharp. You think you're better than us? No, I said softly. Just done. For a moment, the only sound in the room was the wind pushing against the windows. Then Thomas, still standing near the door, spoke quietly. Come on, Rachel, let's go. She didn't move. I walked to the car instead. Haley still sat inside, her reflection warped in the glass. When she saw me, she looked down, ashamed. I opened the door just enough for my voice to reach her. You didn't just break a necklace, Haley. You broke the last tie I was willing to protect. Her chin trembled. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't mean for it to go that far. I believe you didn't mean to, I said. But that doesn't make it okay. You have to live with what you've done. Maybe that's how you finally learn. Rachel stormed over, yanking the car door open wider. We're leaving. Haley wiped her eyes, glanced at me once more, and climbed out of the conversation forever. Rachel pointed a shaking finger at me. You'll regret this. No, I said, stepping back toward my doorway. For the first time, I won't. They drove off. No more calls, no more excuses, no more power over me. In the weeks that followed, the Morales household unraveled completely. They lost the house. The car never returned. Haley dropped out again and started working at a cafe downtown. A quiet one, the kind where no one knew her last name. Thomas filed for legal separation. And Rachel? She kept talking, whispering, twisting the story into whatever version hurt the least. But fewer and fewer people listened. Even gossip gets tired of repetition. One evening, as winter crept in, I found the broken necklace again, still tucked in its napkin, still waiting. I took it to a small repair shop 2 blocks away. The jeweler, an old woman with kind eyes, studied the chain and smiled. Beautiful stone, she said. Was it a gift? Yes, I said, from my grandmother. She nodded. We'll make it whole again. When she handed it back a week later, the clasp was new, the link steady. The emerald gleamed under the light, same as before, yet different. Stronger for having been broken. That night, I hung it by the window where the evening sun could catch it. The green stone threw quiet light across my living room, scattering faint reflections along the walls. I watched it for a long time, the way people watch the ocean, not for movement, but for peace. Sometimes I still think about that dinner table. The laughter, the breaking sound, the way silence felt like defeat back then. Now silence feels like freedom. You don't always need revenge. You just need to stop feeding people who bite the hand that feeds them and let the truth breathe on its own.